Bruce Johnson, founder and CEO of BizScalers and the BizScalers Club. And today I want to talk to you about 8 questions that can solve virtually any employee problem you will ever have. 8 questions that can solve virtually any employee problem you will ever have. Doesn't that sound like a great deal? You know, one of the great things about hiring people is that it allows you as a business owner and entrepreneur to be able to grow and scale your company. It allows you to create leverage. As you're bringing them in, you've got their time, their talents, their energies, their network, their productivity, all of that stuff to be able to grow and scale your company. That's great. In addition, as a business owner / entrepreneur, you know that you're being able to provide food on the table for somebody, you're helping fulfill their dreams. At the same time, some of that revenue goes into helping make sure that you have a great community and you can have good schools and good roads and good police and firefighters, et cetera. So there's so much that's good about being able to hire people, and it really does allow you to be able to grow and scale your company. Of course, like anything else in life, what is good also has a negative side, and the more people you add, the more potential for conflict occurs, the more potential for something wrong to occur, the more you're probably going to have problems. So it's good on one side, bad on the other side. So the great part is hiring people creates leverage. The bad news is it also ends up creating some conflict. So when those problems arise, how are you going to handle them? So what I want to do now is I want to give you 8 questions that if you just ask these 8 questions, it can tell you almost exactly what you should do to handle any specific problem that you're going to have with any employee. Now, if you want to go much deeper on this, make sure you check out the BizScalers Club at scalingclub.com, and we go into a lot more detail about this. But I want to give you 8 questions that you can ask right now. Write them down. You can put them on a piece of paper, put them up on a wall, put them in a folder, put them in Evernote. But these are 8 questions you can use anytime there is an employee problem, and it will tell you exactly what you should be doing. All right, so here we go. The first question is completely related to you. And the first question is, were my expectations clear? Were my expectations clear? My gut is that probably about 60 to 70% of all employee problems are related to the person who's doing the delegating. In other words, they didn't correctly delegate the activity or the project to the person, and therefore, because their expectations weren't clear, that's where the problem happens. And chances are, if you look back on the things that have been a problem with you and your employees, it's probably because you haven't clearly communicated everything that you expected. I expected it to be done by the close of business tomorrow, but you didn't ever say that. And so they really didn't know because you never really clearly communicated it. So you need to always start with the expectation. Were they clearly communicated? 60 to 70% of your problems probably evaporate. You realize, I need to go back and fix that. Now, for the other problems that do exist, here are the 7 questions you're going to ask. The first one was going to be this. Is this a skill problem or a skill issue? So you're looking at somebody, you ask them to do something, they didn't get it done, you say, hey, was it a skill thing? Like, is this something that they've done before? And if they haven't, then obviously you need to train them on how to do that. If it's something they've done a couple times and you've trained them a couple times, then you know that you probably have to have a serious conversation with them, and that might lead to a performance improvement plan, a PIP, or even termination, right? Because if you've asked them to do something, you've trained them multiple times on it, and they're still not getting it, the question is, should they even be gainfully employed by you? So first question, is it a skill issue? Now, if it's not a skill issue, then the second question that you want to ask then is it a knowledge issue? Is it a knowledge issue? Meaning that there are pieces of information that you have that you assume other people have. Remember, the problem of knowledge is that once you know something, it's hard to remember what it's like to not know that thing. So you may think that something's really easy, but you've never given them the information that they need to actually complete the task. You just assume that they knew that. So the solution there is pretty simple. You need to just give them the information, solve the problem, move on. Now, if it's not a knowledge problem or it's not a skill issue, then the third question is this a character issue or is this a will issue? In this case, it might be that you have somebody who just doesn't like taking directions. And if that's the case, that's a character issue. And you have to ask whether or not you want to keep that person engaged and employed or not. But you're probably going to need to have a crucial conversation with them. And that might lead either to a PIP or it might end up leading to termination. Again, the challenge here on character issues is it's very difficult to change someone's character. It tends to be baked in. But the best chance of it being changed is you actually having the conversation with them about it, not just avoiding that, because people will continue to do what they've always done unless somebody's calling them on the carpet for it. So if it's a character issue, you need to confront it, and it might ultimately end up leading them to being terminated. So if it's not a character issue, it's not a knowledge issue, and it's not a skill issue, what's left? Well, it might be a motivation issue. And there you might need to think, is this person, sufficiently motivated to get this task done? Now, maybe you're not giving them the reward that they need, or maybe They just need a little bit more encouragement from you. And so you need to ask the motivation question. Are they motivated? And if not, how can I increase the motivation so that they'll actually want to get the task done? Now, if it's not a motivation issue, and it's not a skill issue, and it's not a knowledge issue, and it's not a character or will issue, then what's available? Well, maybe it might be a resource issue. In this case here, everything in them is right, but they just haven't been given the resources to be able to complete the project. It might be that you haven't given them the amount of money that they need, or maybe they need some people resources, or maybe they need you to open up your network and connect them to some other people who can solve that problem. And again, the solution here is pretty simple. You just need to give them the resources that they need. Now, if it's not a resource issue, then what else is left? Well, it could be a capacity issue. And this is one of the sensitive issues here, because as you've grown your company, there's some people that started with you maybe 2, 3, 5 years ago or more, and they were great at that level, but now they just don't have the capacity. They're maybe a C player, and you're now hiring A players, and it's really clear that they just don't have the capacity. And if someone just doesn't have the capacity, it might either be that you're going to move them to another position, or you're going to have to terminate them because they just don't have the personal capacity. They're a C player at best, and you've worked with them, you've trained them, you've tried to develop them, but they just don't have the capacity or the brain power or the skill set or whatever it be to get to that next level. And then you've got to figure out a nice way to exit them. But the reality is, if they don't have the capacity, they just can't do it. Now, sometimes it might be that there's an undeveloped capacity, and then you just need to develop the capacity. Or sometimes the capacity issue is just a schedule capacity issue. It's not a personal capacity issue, it's a schedule capacity issue. In that case, it might be that you have to come in and maybe you gave them 10 things they're supposed to work on, and you just need to be able to say, listen, no one gets all 10 things done, but I need these 2 things done by the end of the week, so don't worry about these other 8. And you can come in and remove some stuff off that's going to create schedule capacity for them. Now, if it's not a scheduling capacity or personal capacity issue, and you've looked at all the other ones, there's only one other option left, and that would be, is this in fact a systems issue? And what would be a systems issue? Well, it might be, for example, that the way that you reward people is when they engage in these kinds of behaviors, but now you're asking them to do this, and there's actually no reward for them doing that. In fact, there's a disincentive, because if they do these kinds of activities, they're not actually going to get rewarded. That classically happens, for example, in a law firm, where they're incentivized by their production, but now you want them to serve on a committee or you want them to mentor somebody, but they don't get any money for that. In fact, it hurts on the other side. So that's a systemic problem that you might need to solve in order to be able to help them actually get the project done. Maybe there are some roadblocks that you need to remove that are in the systems, or maybe you're using an archaic system in order for them to get the project done in the way that you want them to get done, with it at the level and capacity and the speed you want to get it done. You might need to add some new technology that would allow them to be able to complete that project. But that's it. I mean, that's the whole route. There aren't a whole lot of other options, right? It starts with you making sure that you've clearly communicated your expectations. And if you have, then there are only 7 options. It's either a skill issue, or it's a knowledge issue, or it's a character issue, or it's a motivation issue, or it's a resource issue, or it's a capacity issue, or finally, it's a system issue. That's it. There are only 7 of those options, assuming that you've clearly communicated whatever it is. But those 8 questions will tell you exactly what you should do anytime you have an employee problem. So write those down. Go back through them. They'll, figure out which question is appropriate for what the problem is, and then that'll tell you exactly what you should do. And in some of them, it really is you need to have a crucial conversation, and that, in fact, might either lead to a PIP or to termination. So hopefully you found that helpful. If you did, I would encourage you to pass this along to some other business owners and entrepreneurs that you know, because it'll probably be beneficial to them as well. If you're watching this by video, make sure you hit the subscribe button. If you're listening by podcast, hit the subscribe button as well. And make sure that you come back here week after week, because my commitment to you and our commitment here at BizScalers is to provide you with actionable ideas that can help you grow and scale your business and make it a great business. And by the way, don't forget, if you haven't checked it out yet, take a look at the BizScalers Club at scalingclub.com, scalingclub.com. We're going to provide you with everything that you need to know to be able to grow and scale a great business. So until next time, to your accelerated success, Bruce out.